What is up, Astros fans? Welcome to episode 45 of the Believe in Astros podcast on the Believe Podcasting Network. And man, do we have a packed show for you on a random Friday in the dark, gloomy recesses of the cold off season. I'm Jeff Balke, my partner, just trying to stay warm like the rest of us, Jeff Blum. You can find us on Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, and of course YouTube. Be sure to like and subscribe and keep up with us. Give us a follow on Twitter at Believe in Astros. You can find me at Jeff Balke, Blummer at Blummer27. Anywhere your favorite social medias are sold. Thanks to everyone who's given us 5 stars and left reviews on Apple. Very, very cool of you. And please, if you haven't, please consider it. Just a, just an honest little, if you think we're all that. Don't the kids
You're
still say
too
all
sweet,
that?
man. Just do it. Leave the review.
Exactly. Let Blum, look, Blum's giving you directions. When the man gives you directions, that's what you're supposed to do. Obviously, send us your comments and questions. Love getting those from all of you. An example, are you mad about Jeremy Peña not making MLB's top 10 shortstop list?
Dude, that surprised me.
I know. We're going to talk about that in a minute because I want to get your take on that one. Blummer, how are you this morning?
Good. Chilly, but otherwise a good Friday.
Yeah, exactly. I think so too. Getting into we have a lot to talk about. Like, that's just the bottom line. There's a lot going on in the world of the Astros, so we may as well sink into this. First, a word from our sponsor, if you don't mind. BetOnline remains your number one source for all your sports betting this season. Everything from NFL playoffs to pro and college basketball, UFC, MMA, and more. Obviously, you got any picks this weekend, Blummer? Who's going to the Super Bowl?
Oh man, I want it to be the Bengals and Eagles for whatever reason. I don't know why, if it's an animal thing, but I like the Burrow-Hurts matchup.
Oh yeah, that would be good. I'm kind of weirdly, I think San Francisco could surprise some people. That defense of theirs
is badass. Oh,
their defense is real. That is real. But yeah, I agree with you. Hurts and Burrow would be that would be the swag matchup of the year.
Yeah, but is there something about Brock Purdy too? Just that whole storyline, right. Mr. Irrelevant going to the Super Bowl. I mean, there is a great storyline in that.
It's a fantastic storyline. Probably wouldn't be as fun of a game. The Bengals although look, the Bengals have legit defense too.
Yeah,
it's going to be fun. Either way, Super Bowl should be fun. I will be deep in the heart of the Rocky Mountains for the Super Bowl. So I'll be enjoying it with snow on the ground outside. You'll always find the latest odds, team matchup info, player news, and game trends at BetOnline with live betting options, free contests, live scores for almost any sport or game imaginable. BetOnline is truly the fastest and easiest way to bet all your favorite leagues and events. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to join and receive 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use promo code BLEAV to receive your rewards. BetOnline.ag, where the game starts. So let's get into this. First things first, the Houston Sports Awards. You were in attendance. Jordan picked up Athlete of the Year. How is that? I've never been to one of those. What's it like? What was your experience?
I have never been to an Oscars, Emmys, Grammys, Golden Globes, nor would I want to. But that being said, it's very similar, I believe, in the pageantry and the show of it all. So it's kind of fun. They, Patty Smith runs that with the Houston Sports Authority.
Right.
They've done such a good job, and they really make it an event that you want to go to because they spoil you rotten. I hope it's just as good for fans, but I know as a former athlete, current broadcaster in the city of Houston, being involved with that is such a great thing because you get to walk the red carpet. You feel like a star. They're taking pictures, and then you get in and you get to witness a great show. But I just appreciate the fact that this city, as great as its sports history is, that they're starting to recognize some of the greatness in this city alone. And it's still amazing to me to sit there and say that this is just one city and this is what they've produced. And I think that's the best part about it, is just bringing acknowledgement to the city of Houston, their athletes, and recognizing the greatness of what this city has brought in the sports world.
Did you get a swag bag? I mean,
nope.
I know the swag bags they give out at like the Oscars and the Grammys are pretty ridiculous.
No, I handed out, I think the first year they had the sports awards about maybe 5 or 6 years ago, TK and I got to hand out, I think, Executive of the Year to Jeff Luno,
cool.
and we got like a case of wine. That was good enough for me.
Nice, I'll take it. Anything is good. Anything is good.
Yeah.
So quick recap of the Hall of Fame vote. Billy Wagner did not get in. We obviously voiced our displeasure with this possibility.
Joke.
But exactly. And there's been plenty of, including from Joe DeLeon, who's on the Believe network, really throwing down the gauntlet, calling out writers, and he really went scorched earth on that one. Joe, who I actually talk to on kind of a regular basis, he's very helpful with this podcast as well. So shout out, Joe. Right. But yeah, he laid down some scorched earth on the writers. Not to say I disagree with everything he said, certainly. And there's been plenty of criticism. I read a really interesting story with Ken Rosenthal and Jason Stark and Peter Gammons discussing like the difficulties of getting into the Hall of Fame and what all that means. And I still personally don't fully understand why they would cut down from 15 to 10 on a ballot, or make the eligibility years 15, go from 15 down to 10. I know they're trying to make it hard to get in, to make it sort of the legit Hall of Fame, but nevertheless, it often leaves out people that it doesn't make a whole lot of sense that they're left out, including Billy Wagner. He did get 68% of the vote, which means he'll probably get in next year, and deservedly so. And then, of course, Scott Rowland, the only one that got in. You talked about Scott Rowland being one of the best third basemen you had ever witnessed. So obviously deserving. And it looks like Helton will get in next year, too. He was like 72 or 73%, I think. So
hopefully the altitude helps him out to get those extra votes. Jeez, whatever.
I know we can.
Good job, Joe.
We could rant and rant and rant about this if we wanted to. I'm just not sure I care that much about the overall exclusivity of the Baseball Hall of Fame. I mean, people criticize.
I just think,
they criticize the Basketball Hall of Fame for being too inclusive. I don't know, man. Yeah.
I don't know. The fact that you can make an argument either way shouldn't happen. That's the problem, is that there is an argument to be had, because they do create the scenario where you have to go, what the hell are you thinking?
Yeah. And maybe that's the point. Maybe that's part of it too. Maybe they want the controversy so it stirs up interest. I don't know. Next year, the only guy that's going to be a surefire first ballot is Adrian Beltre. But no, there's nobody else that to be honest with you, the one that still flummoxes me is Jeff Kent. I mean, that's the one that kills. It's like, Jeff Kent? Like, what are y'all doing, Jeff Kent? Way the hell down.
He's the greatest offensive second baseman.
Yeah, of all time, and it's not really even close, and it's just, I don't know. You know how it is, man. He was
a jerk, Jeff. He was a real jerk to us.
I remember something about that. I don't recall. Like, you know what?
Dude, I love Jeff Kent.
Yeah, right. Lots of his teammates certainly loved him. I will tell you this. So I am not a sports writer. I write about sports. There's a difference, right? I'm not covering the beat out there every single day. I don't pretend to be in the same category with these guys, because they're all professionals and incredible, and I love all of them. We're going to have one of them on next week, in fact, one of my favorites, and Brian McTaggart. But I got to tell you, they are some of the most annoying, MFers. I mean, sometimes some of them are incredible, but some of them are just like, what is up with like, you're in the media. You're not actually playing baseball. You're in the media that's covering it, right? Cool. Mm-hmm. And some guys, and good for you for being good at your job, because it's hard. Journalism is not an easy gig, right?
No.
But don't flout it. Don't turn in blank ballots and try to put yourself above the game.
No, it's. I always think of that scene. Charlton Heston back in the 10 Commandments, and he's Moses, and he's like at the top of Mount Sinai or whatever it was, and he's like the thunder in the background and the lightning, and he's like got this big speech. I feel like that's how writers get when they're filling out their ballot. They've just got this overwhelming power and authority, and they're going to wield it. And I'm just like, come on, man, bring it down a notch.
That is a good image. I like the one when History of the World Part 1, when Moses is holding 3 tablets, and he's like, the good Lord brings you these 15. He drops one, he's like, 10 commandments. I prefer to view that one as how it looks.
That's pretty good. That's a little more realistic.
Probably. And look, again, I have tremendous respect for these guys who do the job. It's just that it seems so random and arbitrary and emotional. Honestly, it's like the stock market. Everybody's like, oh, the stock market is very carefully calculated. I'm like, good. Yeah, but it's also kind of people getting upset and spending more money or less money. I mean, it's kind of that too, right? It's a little bit Las Vegas in there. So, yeah. Anyway, Wagner's probably going to get in next year. He's got 2 years of eligibility left. If he doesn't get in next year, he'll get in the following. Still, he should already be in. We both know this. We all know this. So thumbs down to the writers. Anyway, moving on. Yeah. Exactly. Where's the sad trombone noise? Baseball's been naming all their top players at each position. Plenty of Astros are on the list. We talked about Jordan in left field. We just saw Jose Altuve at second base. Got plenty of names. Alex Bregman's in there. Plenty of guys. They came out with their list of the top 10 shortstops. And look, admittedly, shortstop is a loaded position in baseball. There are some really, we saw that in free agency. Oh, man. We are loaded with good shortstops in baseball. But I want to run down the top 10 real quick. And then because Jeremy Peña didn't make it, although he was on a couple of guys' lists, I did notice that a couple of people voted for him in their top 10. He just didn't make it. But so Trey Turner at number 1 makes sense. Carlos Correa at number 2 makes sense-ish. After all the, Carlos Correa's leg is ranked number 50, but his whole person is number 2. Xander Bogaerts number 3, Corey Seager number 4, Francisco Lindor at number 5, Dansby Swanson, now a Cub, at number 6, Bo Bichette, or as my friend Frank and I refer to him at games, Bo Bichette. That's how we like to yell out. That's our Italian version of the yell out. So the last 3 are the ones that kind of, and some of it's just I don't see them. Like, Willie Adams from the Brewers. I don't really see him play that much, so it's hard for me to comment. But Tim Anderson from the White Sox and then Wander Franco from Tampa Bay. I have a hard time. There's great arguments to be made, for all of them. But I'm not sure I can make a great argument that keeps the MVP of the World Series out of that list. Thoughts?
No, I think you got to take it in the context of, are they looking forward to the upcoming season? Because if you do rate them off the 2022 season, is it overall? I don't know what the criteria are, but if I've got a guy who should have been in the top 3 for Rookie of the Year voting and then went into the postseason. The postseason obviously carries weight in the Hall of Fame voting that we were just talking about.
Correct.
Because I think if Billy Wagner had better numbers in the postseason, he'd be in the Hall of Fame right now.
100%.
And if we're talking about, bringing in the entire package, what does a guy bring on a consistent daily basis? Jeremy Peña's in there. He's single-handedly won games for the Astros, both with his glove and his bat. And then you add in, like you just talked about, the American League Championship Series MVP, World Series MVP. How do you not get that guy on the vote? I know that the shortstop position is deep. They've got great, talented players. But if you're going on proven talent and potential for the upcoming season, how does Jeremy Peña not get in there? I don't get it. Throw the guy a little bit of love. Mm-hmm. And I'm tired of this Astro bias, like, he's on the Astros, he's in a great lineup. You can't discount a guy for being in a position that they're at. Is Wander Franco that great if he's in the Astros lineup? Maybe. We don't know. But he's overachieving in a place where the expectation's rather low. You've got Jeremy Peña, who is in a place where the expectation was just to play a good shortstop, and he went above and beyond and proved he's a pretty damn good athlete, and he's got the WAR numbers to back it up.
You make a really good point, Blummer, that I hadn't really thought about. The idea that the weight of expectation as a meriting factor for something like this. It's one thing to like you say, well, he's protected by a good lineup. Yeah, well, Maybe, but he's also expected to be good in that lineup because this is a team with aspirations beyond just playing well. This is a team that expects to be in the World Series, win a World Series every single season. And he was also in the shadow of perhaps the greatest Astro shortstop of all time in Carlos Correa. So, I mean, that's a lot of pressure. And the fact that he was as exceptional as he was, yeah, he had a bit of an up and down season, but that's to be expected from a rookie. But yeah, that's a really good point about the weight of expectations and trying to meet those out while at the same time, play your position and not be overwhelmed by it.
Yeah. And for me, it's still the idea of, the shortstop position is that captain on the team. They're the quarterback of the defensive ball club, and a rookie doing what he did, I think deserved a little more recognition.
Let me ask you something about that, Blummer. So when you're out there defensively, who does set? Like, I know we talk, in football it's easy. We talk about the Mike linebacker, the guy that sort of sets all the defense. Is the shortstop primarily the guy who's kind of making sure everybody, or is it the coaches? Like, how does that happen when you're on the field?
Well, there's a little bit of arrogance because I came up as a shortstop. I played shortstop my entire career, got to the big leagues. I think shortstop is one of those primary positions, not just physically, but mentally too, because you have your eyes into the crotch of the catcher for every single pitch. You know what pitch is coming. You know the sequences. You're in charge of giving signs on a first and third. You're in charge of going out on relays on balls in the gap. I mean, there's so many intuitive, instinctual, cerebral type situations that you need to be prepared for at shortstop because you're literally in on every single play. And then you add the talent. You're the biggest, you're the baddest, you're the most athletic, and the expectation is to that people will lean on you in some of those crucial moments. So being a rookie on a World Series championship team, I think that should carry a little bit extra weight and give you a little more credibility in that sense. But being a shortstop in the big leagues, even with the shifts and everything that's going on, they've got the pitch comm in their hats now that they can hear the pitches that are coming instead of looking in and getting the signs. There is a lot going on, but there's also a lot being processed. And when you get a question from your third baseman, your left fielder, your second baseman, you better damn well be ready to answer those questions.
Wow. Well, I will say this. If playing shortstop requires staring into the crotch of the catcher for the entire game, I'm out. I'm just saying. That does not sound like... Yeah, hey, with Maldy's like colorful fingernails, that's a kind of maybe might make for an interesting... anyway, it was very colorful sounding is all I can say about that. So let's get on to the biggest news of all, and that is the Astros kind of a little bit surprisingly out of the blue yesterday announced they hired Dana Brown as their new general manager, former vice president of scouting with the Braves, a long 33-year career in baseball with the Pirates. He was with the Expos when they became the Nationals, which should date
easy. So was I.
That's right. I forgot about that. And also with the Blue Jays. Obviously, he has real draft chops. He's drafted like the Rookie of the Year last year and the runner-up, both playing for the Braves. And he played baseball with Craig Biggio at Seton Hall, which is not to be discounted, and drafted Caven in Toronto, Craig Biggio's son. So. Blummer, you probably know him if you were with those teams. Do you not know him at all?
No. The funny story is that I think his first full year with the Expos was 2002, and I got traded in the spring of 2002 from the Expos to the Astros. So he may have been in on the decision making when Omar Minaya was the GM for Major League Baseball Expos organization at the time, and I was the first trade that regime made.
Wow. Well, what are your thoughts on this guy? I feel like this was a great hire. Obviously, they had the runner-up was Brad Ausmus. As much as I like Brad Ausmus as a guy, former Astro and a person, he doesn't have any experience in the GM position, and that worried me. So tell me, what are your thoughts now that Dana Brown has become the new GM?
First things first, what the hell took so long? I don't understand some of these situations. You just mentioned it, 33 years. This guy goes back to,
Yes.
in the infancy of my career back in 2002. I was 3 years into the season, and he finally becomes somebody that can have an impact as far as scouting is concerned. He's obviously paid his dues, even more so than I think he needed to, but the pedigree is there. And what I like, and great hire by the Astros, I think this one's actually going to be very good because the Astros are in an interesting spot right now. They're great. They're good. They're World Series champions. They're looking to repeat. And I think Dana understands that. But coming over here and making the decision to go with somebody like Dana, you look at his background, VP of scouting. He is going to bring back some of that element of scouting to go with the analytics. And the reason I like that is because I think scouting is a fine art. Recognizing talent is another aspect of that fine art. And he's done that. You mentioned what he's done in Atlanta. He understands, that process. He understands that organizational mentality of developing and drafting young talent. And that's where the Astros are at right now. You've got some contracts running out with the Alex Bregmans, the Jose Altuves, and they haven't had the number one pick over the last couple of years. So they're going to have to rely heavily on scouting young talent in order to create this endless list of guys that they can continue to bring up and compete and create World Series champions. So that's where I think Dana Brown's really going to prove his worth, is in that development, drafting, and then, of course, he's got some serious decisions to make as far as extensions are concerned moving forward. It's a really unique time to be an Astros GM, and I think they did a great job. I'm a big fan of the signing of Dana Brown.
I am as well. You hit on pretty much everything that I agree with here. I think the fact that he is a draft sort of nerd, and the fact that he is so good with the scouting end of it, is critical for a team whose farm system has really been depleted. I mean, we joke about how, their farm system isn't very good, and yet we still get Hunter Brown and Pedro Leon and whoever else coming up at Jeremy Peña. But the truth is, they do have a depth problem in their farm system. They don't have the depth that some other teams have. And so replenishing that is going to be important. And having a guy that can really help to bolster that is a big deal. We also can assume that because he's been in the league this long, he's not going to be shy about making deals. And, we know, last year that was one of the things that, Click got caught in the crosshairs of Jim Crane, who really wanted some moves to be made, and the trigger just wasn't pulled. And so you've got to figure that Dana Brown is going to be more aggressive about making some of those moves when they need to. It's also notable that he's the only black GM in baseball right now. Ken Williams, technically the executive vice president of baseball for Chicago for the White Sox. And this is only the second time in baseball history where we've had a black GM and a black manager at the same time. In fact, the Astros were the first team to hire an official general manager who was black. That was Bob Watson in 1994. Yep. So we have some track record there. That, to me, is incredible, that in a league with this many people of color in it, obviously there are fewer black people today than maybe in the past in playing. It's obviously the contingent of Latin American players is much more significant, but the fact that we're only twice in all these years of baseball, it's terrible, but it's laudable at the same time. Obviously, they're trying to pick the best guy, but the fact that the best guy happens to be a person of color, to me, is really laudable for the Astros.
No, I think it's a great thing, and it's not. That wasn't the initial response. They didn't say, "Oh, we need to go after the African American." They said we need the best, and you nailed it by saying they went and got the best.
Yes.
Dana Brown is the best, and it's a credit to him for grinding for 33 years, not losing faith in the program, not losing faith in the game, and sticking it out so he gets this opportunity. I loved his press conference, by the way. Some of the things he said, I was like, dude, I want to play for this guy.
I know. I was ready to suit up. I was like, come on, let's do this.
And but I think that's where you go back to the relationship with James Click and Jim Crane. Is Jim wants the guy that's going to be a little hair trigger happy, maybe he goes out there and takes a little bit of a chance, but I think it's going to be a calculated risk with Dana Brown, but he's not going to be afraid. The fact that he said we've got to continue to be greedy about winning, I absolutely love that.
100%.
I'm the player that sits in the booth, and when a guy gets 3 hits, I'm like, man, this is a time to get greedy. You have to be greedy in this game. And if that is your mentality, you are going to take some calculated risks and maybe take advantage of some opportunities. But I agree with you in the sense that, I hope this trends in the right direction. I hope that Dana Brown inspires, and that's when you don't have many guys with these opportunities, or females. You've got the Marlins GM Ing down there doing a great job.
Right.
But when you get these opportunities like Dana Brown, already the pressure of being a GM, but he's also an inspiration for some of these players currently. Maybe for some of these scouts that are in the league, or some of these other front office personnel. He's an inspiration for them. There's a lot of pressure on him to go out there and do a great job and inspire some of these other minorities to come up and do a great job. I think the Latin American manager is something that needs to really make a resurgence.
I agree.
Dusty Baker's an inspiration, but the more diverse, the better things are. And I think Dana Brown and the Houston Astros did a great job of encouraging that. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I can't, selfishly as a broadcaster too, I mean, I didn't realize it at the time when I'm playing. The GM is the guy who's making decisions on my career, and I'm like, oh man, I gotta play hard, got to impress him. Oh, why do you do that? All of a sudden you're critical. But now, being on the broadcast side, I can't wait for spring training to start, because now I get to go meet the guy and we get him in the booth. Then we can bend his ear, ask some questions, and talk to him a little bit, and that's where. Selfishly, I can't wait to meet Dana Brown, especially after the conversations he's had in front of the media so far.
That whole thing about getting greedy about winning was, I think everybody was like, I saw that all over Twitter. A couple of people were saying that should be the Astros slogan for next year. Greedy about winning. I mean, and the fact that he said, I think the line was, he said he wanted to pour himself into the city of Houston. Like there was just a lot of it. He's just a guy that. He seems like one of those people that, like, not only is he getting a first opportunity for this, to actually run the front office of an organization, but you get the sense that he just has a ton of energy for it. I mean, I would think you'd have to, because scouting is difficult. I mean, I've talked to some guys who've either done it or are, close with people who've done it, and they talk about what a grind it is. Because you've got so many, dozens and dozens of players you have to think about. And the other thing, too, about this, the Astros and probably the Dodgers have the 2 best international scouting departments in all of baseball. They are absolutely spectacular at it, the Astros in particular. So you're adding now a guy whose domestic scouting credentials are through the roof to a team that's already great internationally. That to me is really great.
Yeah, just one last thing. Are we really surprised that Houston is taking the opportunity by signing a black general manager? No. I mean, this is easily the most diverse city on the planet with the most opportunity. And I just think it just doesn't just befit the organization, like you said, who's really heavy into the international aspect of the game. Yep. But as far as a city and a community, I mean, this is exactly where something like this should be happening, because the city's so diverse.
Well, we'll have to see with the Texans, but we had a black head coach, general manager for every major sports franchise in Houston. And then if you count Kelvin Sampson, U of H may as well be a major sports franchise.
It's a great point.
Yeah, and so it's not a big deal. The Texans have had a black GM before. It's I think when you're living in the most diverse city in the country, it can't. I mean, look, you always want to pick the best person, but that means picking from the deepest talent pool, and the deepest talent pool doesn't just include old white guys, No. And I think what's I know, right? We've talked about that. But here's the thing. Here's the thing that I love about this too, is that this is a guy who has all this experience and all this time grinding and just all this work ethic to poured in over years and years. And he's worked with teams on pre-analytics. Mm-hmm. He's worked with teams with analytics. He's a guy that, and the Braves have been one of the better franchises over the last few years of blending analytics and scouting together to find talent. That's just, to me, everything about this guy smacks of greatness that has been untapped so far, and everybody else's loss to me is the Astros gain.
Yeah, well, he's been the contributing factor. Now he's the main factor going out there and doing that. And I think it's great. He's worked with the Expos like we talked about, 8 years with the Pirates. Those were developing franchises. Then he gets his chance with the Toronto Blue Jays. They start to win in Toronto when he's there, moves to Atlanta, and he has a Rookie of the Year. And he also made some key trades, bringing in, Matt Olson, I think Sean Murphy, some of these other guys. He's responsible for Spencer Strider, recognizing talent. But at the same time, I think the most interesting thing is he's been in on a lot of those meetings with the Atlanta Braves when they were extending. And I think this is probably something that you probably want to comment on too.
Yes.
Is the fact that he was in on some of these meetings discussing extensions for Austin Riley, Albies, Acuna Jr., Matt Olson. They're really creating a long winning window in Atlanta by locking up some young talent for the extended future. And that's where I think moving in here, and I'll let you expand on it, is where he's got some opportunities with some guys here to extend and get some of those contracts going too.
Absolutely. In fact, that was my very next point. So you're right in there, Blummer, as usual.
It's like we're hosting the show or something. I don't know what's going on here.
It's like we've done this before. So one of H-Town Wheelhouse, who is one of the co-hosts of the Locked on Astros podcast. By the way, we need to do a Locked on Astros, Believe in Astros supercast at some point.
I know.
We should just blow it out. He posted a question on Twitter. He asked, how will the hiring, impact not only the extensions to guys like Christian Javier and Framber Valdez and Kyle Tucker, but how soon do you think he wants to dig into those? I mean, we are in the arbitration period right now. I would think sooner rather than later, right?
I would imagine. I would imagine actually that when you're going through the interview process, and these are extended processes because you want to make sure you make the right decision. So you're asking these guys very similar questions when you have them sitting in front of you. I can only imagine, and I can only hope, that when they sat them down, whoever this, this voting group was, or this interviewing group was, that they sat them down and said, look, we've got these guys, like you said, Tucker, Framber, Javier, and some of these guys. How would you approach signing them to an extension?
Yes.
Would you even consider it? And what would the extension be? I would imagine that had to be in the conversation. So I think if you're going for the GM position with the Astros or any organization, you're looking at the entire roster and imagining, or at least, putting together a preliminary report on why you would sign these guys or why you wouldn't and what the number would be. So I'm sure that question was probably in there. And how great would it be if you move into a GM job like this and you're like, hey, my first move was signing Kyle Tucker to a 10-year deal.
Right.
You're gonna endear yourself to the organization and the community immediately.
Well, I think it's going to be interesting to see what they do too, because this is one of those things where I know that the Astros have been hesitant, if not just straight out not wanting to do any really long-term contracts. Will that change? Like, will the calculus to that change some? Will he say, okay, maybe I still don't think they're going to sign anybody for 10 years, but will they bump it to, say, 7 instead of 5 or 6? You have to wonder. And also, I just couldn't help but thinking, was his first call after the press conference to Kyle Tucker's agent? Like, I feel like there's got to be, like, right off the bat, it's got to be like, listen, we need to, even if we're not saying, hey, we're going to sign you, let's get this. There's got to be some open conversation with these guys to say, hey, you're a long-term part of this organization. We want you here. What do we have to do? And that's exciting for fans, given the fact that we're, just like 63 days away from opening day and just like 2 weeks now away from pitchers and catchers reporting. It's a huge deal for not just for fans, but for the Astros. I mean, these are big, big, important long-term moves. And you mentioned, too, about some of these guys are coming to end of contracts, right? You're going to see over the next few years, Alex Bregman's going to start getting closer to the end of his. You're going to see Jose Altuve getting – and there's decisions you're going to have to be made, important decisions. And so getting a and look, Dana Brown could fall flat on his face. Nobody knows, right? Nobody knows.
Unlikely,
what's going to happen. unlikely, but we don't know. But I will say that from every sort of angle that you look at this was absolutely the right choice. Like when you look at this I haven't seen a single person say, man, I wish they would have hired somebody else, right?
You're right.
Everybody's like, yeah, this is a good hire. We don't know if it's going to be a great hire, but in terms of the optics, in terms of, the passing the smell test, like everything about it seems right. And then when he comes in and just pumps up the volume in the press conference with let's get greedy about winning, like, come on. Let's freaking go.
Yep. I'm in.
I am ready. All right, Blummer. Well, that wraps up another amazing podcast. I'm going to give ourselves 5 stars.
I like it. Yeah, you should write a review for us.
I'm going to write my own review. I'm going to say this podcast is the greatest podcast in the history of podcasts.
Just drop the mic and walk out. We've done everything we can. We've hit the pinnacle.
All
of the
other
mountain.
podcasts should cease to exist at this point.
And bow down.
Blummer, what you got going this weekend, buddy? Are you just chilling, or do you have responsibilities as a broadcaster? What is going on?
It's been a busy month.
Yeah.
Today, actually, as we're recording, is my 22nd wedding anniversary, so I will be celebrating that with my wife.
Congratulations to you and Mrs. Blummer.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a hell of a run. We're continuing awesome. to work very strong through the highs and lows. And then, how about this? On Saturday night, I will be emceeing the Poultry Auction Committee Gala.
What?
My second year, and it's one of the more fun nights I have. Yeah.
Okay. Wait a minute. Hold on.
Drink this in.
You've got it. The poultry. Repeat that for me because I need to get that back.
Last year, I was given the opportunity to host what I didn't know at the time was a poultry auction committee for the rodeo. They have a gala where they recognize all the people who donated and bought the poultry at the auctions during the rodeo. I will be back for my second year as MC of the Poultry Auction Committee Gala. And it's one of the best things I've ever done because the people are great. It's a blast, and it gives me all kinds of connections to the rodeo.
Man, Blummer, I've never heard of it before. Please tell me they're serving chicken. Please tell me
it may be of the fried variety. And I was like, I actually questioned. I'm like, you're serving what?
It's like these are oh wow, Blum. I don't even know what to say about that other than
that locked you up.
It did. I mean, I'm not normally speechless, but honestly, that was it reminds me of a WKRP in Cincinnati back in the day when Les Nessman won the Silver Sow Award. Like it feels yes. This is like some real deep in the rodeo kind of stuff right there when the poultry gala.
Well, there's certain things I've found, moving to Houston. I mean, Texans are very protective of their country of Texas down here. And in order to get your Texan card, there's certain things you have to check off the list. Mm-hmm. I would imagine that being the Poultry Auction Committee Gala MC, checks a pretty large box.
Are you wearing your boots?
Oh, well, there's a certain theme to it. Last year it was Mardi Gras. And I was terrible at that because I didn't have any Mardi Gras attire. But this season, it's like derby season. So I've got a seersucker suit that I'm going to rock the hell out of. Yeah. That's why you got to follow me on Instagram because I'll probably have some good photos.
You have of the suit. I expect a photo of you in your seersucker suit holding a piece of fried chicken and sipping a mint julep. That's what that's my expectation. That's my expectation, Plumber. That is amazing. Well. Congratulations on the poultry MC, which is so fascinating.
That's what we're supposed to say, yeah.
That is fascinating. Also, obviously, congratulations on your anniversary. My 10 year is this year. 10
that's a big one.
In October. So I feel you. That's awesome. I follow your wife on Instagram as well because she is often posting some hilarious stuff just of you.
Yeah. I get exposed on there. Yep.
Yeah, you do, but it's okay. It keeps you humble, right?
Yes, it does. Yes.
I'm still trying to get past this poultry thing, man. I'm still trying to dig in on this poultry thing. Oh God, that's so good. That is so freaking good. Okay, we'll be back next week. By the way, special guest next week, Brian McTaggart of MLB.com will be with us next Wednesday. Really great guy. And his newsletter, if you're not signed up for it on email, get it. It is my favorite thing to read every single week. Tremendous insight. He's been with MLB Network now since 2009 covering the Astros. So if he doesn't know it, nobody does. And so we'll be back next week on Wednesday for that. Obviously brought to you by BetOnline. Huge thanks to all our listeners and viewers everywhere. You guys are awesome, liking and subscribing and commenting. Thanks so much for all of that. We appreciate you deeply. Keep it coming. Like I said, just 63 days now until opening day. 63. Whoop. I can't believe how close it's getting, Blummer. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you next week. Go Astros.